ready to go?
Yep, the live stream has started.
Okay, sounds good. We'll call a meeting order. I guess first we'll start with roll call. Can you just, what's the easiest way to do that?
The way I've been doing it is just noting who all is here from my point of view, looking up, but you can also do it with having people check in, whichever you prefer.
Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Dave, yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, everything looks like they're present.
And to both you chairs, Kelly and Randy, I have someone coming to fix a windshield in my truck this morning or today sometime. And depending on what work she had at dealership, she didn't know what time she'd be here. So if I get a call and I have to leave for a few minutes, that's where I am.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Start with the approval of minutes. Can I get a motion? Everybody got a chance to read them?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented. This is Chuck.
Second.
Who was that seconding?
Brian.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes. No public hearing, no public comment, nothing request to the chair. I guess we start with Dolly, staff reports.
Good morning, everybody. Really busy month. I'm going to start out with the WisDOT FTA report. The completion of the vehicle disposal officially with WisDOT was completed on July 24th. Not from WisDOT, but from the sale of the vehicles, we received $6,800. Item 2, the 2020 Capital Award was signed and we received that July 8th. It's an amount of $200,000 for a solar panel system, solar array. This is giving us $160,000 federal dollars, and we'll match that with $40,000 locally. The third item was WisDOT's 5311 and 8521 Q2 submitted. Just a couple days late on that, not a problem. The next item, WisDOT has been requesting the 2019 Transit System Revenue Expenditure Distribution Form. I've been in constant emails or continuous emails with both our CFO, Keith, and WisDOT on that, and telling them where we are based on where the audit's at for that year. And Keith and I have passed back emails, and when Keith has any adjustments that have to be made to our 2019 budget, he'll let me know, and when that's completed, I can send in that form to WisDOT. The next item is I've begun the WisDOT staffing procurement. I've mentioned this to you all before, that our PI staffing contract expires in December 2020. It went on for over 5 years with some re-ups that were in part of the contract. So now I'm starting a new one, and I've hired a consultant to write the RFP. I've been too understaffed here in the last 6 months in order to work on this, and now I'm training somebody new. He's working with us on other issues, and he works with the 2 major consulting firms in the country. So he just completed, well, I am working with him directly, but on the details, but he completed a first draft, and that was submitted to the procurement officer at WisDOT yesterday. Also, our own finance department, John McLaughlin, is the procurement officer for our department in transit. So he'll be working on the posting and the details once it's completed and posted, the follow-up details. Next item, tomorrow, I'll be having a meeting with WisDOT and then the regional Excel project manager and the local Excel project manager to see where we're at on the electric vehicle program. So many things have been stalled because of COVID. And so they're anxious to get that going again. And the couple of things on our part are John Swirsky is working with a firm in the potential of a RFP development. We just don't know how much the facilities might have to be changed in order to work on the charging stations. But Excel's regional group has us in multiple programs that will be paying for the hookup and installation. Otherwise, WisDOT was going to cover 95% of it, but now Excel is tapping into this. It's a great program, and they feel that Dunn County will, you know, be a kind of a flag star of solar power for the buses. So they're real anxious to participate with it. So anyways, I'll know next month to tell you more. The other big thing is the Altoona testing facility for federal buses is maybe just opened is the last word. I talked to WisDOT yesterday, and they said they believe it opened up again, but yet, so our buses are in line to be tested, and once they get their place in the lineup, it'll still take what they call a short amount of time, 45 to 90 days to go through that testing. So we're still quite a ways off on everything, but moving forward. The next item is, as we all know, the governor mask order August 1st, and public and throughout the state. So that applies to transit too, and WisDOT is backing that decision. So we've required all our passengers to wear buses on board. Our drivers have been wearing them all along. The last item for WisDOT was, you may recall that we had a management review a couple of years ago where FDA comes in and oversees the whole transit operations and capital, and they look over all the paperwork. Well, we got picked again. It's a little bit different emphasis now because they're actually, I believe, reviewing WisDOT for FDA compliant site reviews. But we're picked. And as the one before, they request numerous amounts of documentation that I provide, and I'm not sure if they will do an actual site visit too. I would assume so because it's a compliant site review, but we'll see with COVID how this goes. That'll be happening between August and June this year. I'm going to move on to item B, agency updates. Dunn County, as you know, if you're on the county board or not, the 2021 budget and the 2019 audit were presented at the last county board meeting. I've been working with the finance department, as I told you, with the 2019 for WisDOT, but also I prepared and provided information for Clifton Larson Allen, the county hired auditors. That went on this last month also. And then Public Works. So Public Works has a company they've been working with, helping with the facility RFP for the charging station. And that's moving along a little. No more tomorrow after this meeting when we all get together. And then Public Works has also been putting up the shelters around town, which I think you're all aware of, and that proceeds in between their primary commitment of repaving the roads during this time. The second agency report I have is on economic development, Dunn County Economic Development. I submitted the second quarter 2020 to the state workforce development office. They were extremely happy to hear we were putting in shelters, so that was a really good positive feedback from them. I also had a meeting with Stacy Wigfield on August 6th, just last week, and he talked a lot what's going on in the business community, UW Stout, and COVID concerns. As far as the C2C, I spoke to it in the last couple of months meetings, and everybody's just on hold. People are, we don't know how many employees are really working from home at this point, how many are commuters, what's going to go on with K through 12 schools, what will go on with the Stout students. So that's being put on hold, and again, I'll remind you that we have an extension on that to 2021. The interim director also spoke to some discussions between Dunn County EDC program and the Greater Menominee EDC. So I guess that's in the works too. The next thing I want to talk about is the senior center. I've gotten an update from their director. They've been closed since the beginning of March or end of March. They had a meeting, the board of directors, just in the last day or two, but they decided to defer any discussions on opening the facility until their September board meeting, and they think it might be moved to October. I just spoke with the director in the last couple of days, so that's where they're at right now. With the city of Menominee, another agency we work with here, the concrete pads are all installed, and I got an email notice that on July 31st, the concrete pads on the Stout campus were completed. Today, this afternoon, we'll be having a meeting with the Stout group to move forward on what our routes may look like and what the occupancy in the dorm is, and move forward with preparation for Stout students returning to campus. The next category is the bus fleet. Now we're completing our DOT annual inspections, and then also the bike rack and destination signs will be installed by Highway. They're going to start working on those projects now, and I'm hoping, and looks pretty positive, that the new operations supervisor will be able to assist in that process and learn how to do it independently. The next thing is staffing operations, so we'll go back to that new operations supervisor. I've hired, his name is Dustin Witt, young man. He worked with us before. He's a Stout graduate. He started on July 20th, and he first trained on the quarterly submission, so he got a deep dive right away. He comes with some mechanic skills too, so I think that'll be really nice. And he's somewhat familiar with SAP too, and he just has to really learn our internal systems, but so far so good. Going back to the staffing RFP contract too, I want to tell you that I've really changed around the definitions of what our employees are. Rather than last transit agency who made this contract, he was straight on a dispatcher, office manager, and drivers. I find the need for a lot more skilled workers inside the office when dispatchers have a lot of downtime, and some of our current dispatchers didn't have computer experience or skills, and they couldn't fill in with some of the other work. So I've changed the position more to be a dispatcher office assistant. And I interviewed 4 different people, had them this last month, had them kind of job shadow a current dispatcher, so I feel more confident in hiring one. So someone new started just a couple of days ago, and she'll be working 2 days a week, shadowing another dispatcher. And if you recall, one of our drivers came indoors to work on dispatching, and we want to get her back out on the road. So this training is to prepare for her to take over the new dispatcher to take over the driver who came in. So that's all good and looking well. So I've got a good staff in here, although they're being trained and they're new. They're ready to go and enthusiastic, which is quite nice. With all the different changes that are going on in transit with the solar and different activities, I really needed somebody that was extremely, enthusiastic and ready to update processes. Some of them were very stagnant. Also in this last month, I've been doing a lot of work to do operations supervisor work as opposed to maybe transit manager work. So I've been juggling, wearing a lot of hats, as they say. But onward to capital projects. So the shelters are moving forward, and the bus facilities are on the calendar moving forward. Miscellaneous, marketing, if you've checked out our Facebook, Instagram, I've been posting our current routes, face mask requirements, things like that. Also, I've been beginning logo work with a marketing agency. Early on, really over the last couple of years, I've been trying to seek out agencies that wouldn't hit me with the $80,000 marketing bill, which is a standard price for this, and I've gotten it down lower and lower and lower, and I finally was able to get somebody that would go in that's worked with nonprofits, and they work more on helping the community model rather than the bottom line profit. So I think I've got a really good group now working on some logo work. The other thing in miscellaneous, a lot of training going on, whole lot of training going on for COVID in the transit world, and then the electrification of the vehicles too, a lot of trainings on that. That completes my staff report, except for item 8, which the consideration for actions to be taken by the commission. I've listed both A, the 2021 legislative agenda, and B, the budget. To speak to the first one, I included in your packet some information about what are the different agenda legislative items that the transit world across FTA across the state, within the across the country and the state both. And I think the main thing, if I would just comment after, and then I think I send it over to you guys to finish this meeting, but the main thing is to continue road repair is really the main focus of transit, because without our infrastructure being repaired, the buses aren't going to have roads to go on. So I believe if you all would go to this next, Randy, if you want to continue this discussion on the legislative.
Well, first, any comments from the report from anybody? Any questions for Dolly on the first part? Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Dolly, for that. Moving on to review recommendations for the 2020 legislation agenda. That's something we got to take a vote on or motion on?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Paul.
Okay, so just as a reminder to everybody, every year we adopt a legislative agenda consisting of items that we want to advocate our state representatives in Madison. We want them to advocate on our behalf. Hopefully we distributed for the commission's review what we adopted for 2020. That's the basis that we're using. I'm sorry, Dolly?
Yep, I included that in the packet, so they all got that.
Didn't have it in front of me. Thank you. So what you're doing is reviewing, are there any items on there that are still, that are transit related, that are still germane, that we still want our representatives to try to push in Madison? And is there anything new or different, any change to an existing one that you would like to recommend to the county board be part of the 21 legislative agenda? And yes, if there are any changes, Chairman, additions, deletions, whatever, a motion would be appropriate.
Okay. So Dolly, was there any additions to that or same as last year?
We didn't have anything for transit last year. The roads and highways support an increase in the gas tax. My
Gas and
suggestion for transit and highway would be the continuation of funding in the FAST Act would be appropriate to put, that would benefit both public works and transit.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Moving on to the budget, I guess. Everybody got a chance to look that over? Do we need to approve that to go on, or where are we at on that with Paul?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yes, what you want to do is review the draft budget. It's what was submitted to the entire county board on July 29th. This committee wants to review that. Perhaps Dolly can address the highlights, focusing on any particular changes from the 2020 budget, but review the highlights, and then this committee has the opportunity to weigh in, again, recommending to the executive committee that the budget be adopted as drafted, or recommending any changes to what has been drafted and presented to you. And a motion should at the very least come forward on a recommendation to the executive committee.
Okay.
I'm just going to note that in the past budget process, we have approved the transit budget to go to highway for a second level of approval rather than straight to the executive committee.
And Supervisor McCullough is correct. Unfortunately, we do not have it on the agenda for highway. Highway will get an opportunity to review it as well if there's anything that they might want to add. But in this case, the recommendation this year will go straight to executive from transit, with highway having at least had eyes on, if not an action item.
Okay, that works for me. Thanks.
I could briefly go over some of the bigger changes. I know Keith Stry is listening in too. And so from when I submitted the budget back in June, and when we received it, or the county board received it recently, there were very, very little changes. A little bit of change in salary, but I think the components changed a little because things were rolled in with that salary too from, I think, a PEP sheet that maybe changed a little bit, and perhaps there was a change in what the salaries would be. If I see that, maybe the board decided on a certain percent increase in salaries. That changed. Keith, could you say what that was?
Certainly, I can add to that. During the budget process, there are updates to salaries and wages and benefits as we go. For example, when the state of Wisconsin finalizes Wisconsin retirement system rates, we make updates. Yes, there was a change in the salaries of what was included regarding the amount of budgeted pay increase, as well as steps for those that are in there. So there was an adjustment there. So it's normal and customary that we have adjustments as we go through. So what was presented to the county board was the latest direction as far as preparing the budget.
Thanks, Keith. The only other note I noted was an IT equipment adjustment. I had put roughly 5,000 in it, and then it was changed to 2,000. And I think that was following a discussion with IT, because what our needs are on computers and what equipment needs to be that was adjusted, I think, on the day actually that this was submitted, or very close to. So that adjustment wasn't made prior to the June submittal. Other than those two, nothing else changed. There were no other changes really.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, this is Darren. I'm not sure who can answer this. I'm looking at, looks like lines 42, 405, and 050 R&M. There's one R&M equipment. I don't have a question about that. And then the next one is RMM. I'm guessing that should say grounds. And just, I'd like to clarify what that is. And then, although the dollar figure isn't much, the percent change is pretty significant.
So that would be on the grounds. It's snow removal. So we got hit with a really big snow removal bill this year. And so that's the majority of it. But, you know, as with this budget, I might have to do, obviously, some adjustments in it in order to cover what our actual expenses are, because I never know what those are going to be. And the same goes with WisDOT, because what I submit to them, you know, both of them kind of are married together, the WisDOT budget and this one. And so as changes occur, I can make those changes also in WisDOT. So it's kind of a domino effect of what happens, and then I can put in for changes. And WisDOT is totally okay with that, just as long as everybody knows.
Thank you. And to clarify, then R&M, is that roads and maintenance, or is that some other abbreviation that I'm not aware of?
Repair and maintenance.
Oh, repair. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I yield.
Any other questions on the budget proposal? If not, I guess we need a motion to approve it to the executive.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that motion.
We got a motion to approve and second it. All those, any other discussion? All those in favor of moving it on to executive, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. I guess we'll move that on to executive. Don't think there's anything else. Any other thing that we have to bring up yet? If not, thanks, Dolly, for all the information.
You're welcome.
And I did look at the shelters. They look really nice. I've seen one in North Menominee. It looks really nice. So.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of positive feedback. Thank you so much, Randy.
Yep. Otherwise, we're
Yeah,
adjourned.
I checked one out at night, and it was pretty nice as well. So solar panels are working.
All right, great feedback.
Otherwise, we're adjourned.
See you later today, Dolly.
Okay, see ya.
Check your
Bye.
email. I'll be sending you stuff soon.
Okay, great.
All righty. Jerry, is that you on the phone line there? Great. Then I guess I will go ahead and call the meeting to order and call the roll, show all members of the committee are present, along with County Manager Paul Miller, County Chair Dave Bartlett, Bob Colson, Chris DeVend, and Keith Stray. And of course, our Public Works Director, John Swirsky. Yeah, I'm marginally less awake than would be ideal here. I will go on now to approval of the minutes.
Move we approve.
Make a motion. I'll second that motion.
Brian and Chuck. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion passes. No items placed at the request of the chair, so straight on to staff reports. John, over to you. You're muted.
You know?
Yep.
Okay. Little technical difficulties. I sent out my monthly staff report in there. Things have been going really good construction wise. We haven't had a lot of rain to delay us. Q has been pulverized. Scott Moline is up there shaping it in preparation to pave next week. They finished up the surface on County Trunk V east of Ridgeland, 4.75 miles. Binder last week each direction, and 2 passes of surface this week. So paving is complete up on V. Q is on the schedule for next week here as soon as it's prepped, weather permitting. And then construction work started on J. Dave Thatcher has started some pipe work down on J. So we're going to try and sneak most of that project in here before the cold weather rolls in. Mowing operations continue on the county and on the state system. I've been doing a little bit of work for the town of Wilson, their mowing operations. We completed the PBM job, the chip seal and fog seal on Highway 72 west of Downsville. So that's complete. We're waiting for the check from the state on that. Our chip sealing and fog sealing is complete for the year. We did a overlay on County Trunk E north of 1225 to the interstate bridge there just on the south side of Rusk. The new paver went into operation here a week and a half ago, and that was one of our first jobs to try it out on. Roland Machinery was in to train the guys on that. So far, everything is working really good. They really like it, and it's laying down a really nice mat. So I think the rideability and the service life of the asphalt is going to definitely improve. Well, work started on State Highway 25 with the DOT project from Downsville to the Pepin line. They got a lot of the pipe work started on there. They anticipate November 1 to finish up that project. We're still waiting for the DOT to start the mill and overlay on 1229 from Value Implement there, the intersection of V and 1229 and the interstate. Exit 52. So that's supposed to go yet this fall. It's getting in quite tough condition. So we're anxious to get that rolling there, and that'll help some of the windshield issues we've been having and just the rough riding. Some of that'll go away and give us a good surface here to plow this winter. That concludes the highway operations. Shop operations is we've been still at full staff here, getting a lot of the plow trucks DOT checked, getting those ready for winter. A lot of belts, hoses, tires, brakes, a lot of issues there. Getting it now while the sun is shining and those trucks aren't having to be out on the road with plow equipment. So hopefully we'll have a lot of the minor issues we normally have the first and second time when the plows go out. A lot of that can be alleviated. Otherwise, currently everything is going on schedule as far as project wise, both in the shop and the highway operations. John McLaughlin has been working with me to create a monthly financial report of our highway operations in order to track our money and projects a little bit better. So does anybody have any questions on what was sent out on any of the monthly statements on finance? Okay. And then yesterday, with the request of Chair McCullough, he asked me if I could start putting together a spreadsheet to help track what we've been doing in our past history, basically. So what I did is I just kind of made a spreadsheet here with just the meat and potatoes. I was able to go back, originally we had talked about going back to 2010, about 10 years, but I did have the information readily available to go back to about 2006. So what I did is I just took the meat and potatoes of it, our total highway budget, what our county levy was, our GTA, our LRIP and STP money from the state, the amount of winter maintenance, summer maintenance, and construction projects we did for the DOT, PBM contracts, work we did for the towns and villages, the equipment revenue we generated through the use of our equipment throughout the year, any past borrowing, and then breakdown of what we've spent on county maintenance and winter maintenance, and then county construction. So it's just, if you guys get the calls and say, where are we at on spending, you guys can, I'll get everybody a hard copy here as soon as we get it all finished up and amended. But what I'd like to do also is get a detailed sheet of how much seal coating, chip sealing, fog sealing, total miles of road construction, overlays, we'll get more of the physical stuff locked down. And that way, then if a constituent or another county board member gets a hold of you guys and says, hey, where are we at here? Are we doing more? Are we doing less? Are we staying the same? You guys will have some information that's readily available. So if you guys have anything that you want to see on here, feel free to just shoot me an email, and then I will track down the information and incorporate it with this spreadsheet. And was looking if you guys got any comments on this.
Well, first off, thanks. I really appreciate having all of that stuff in one easy to access place.
This is basically what you were looking for, Kelly, with the
Yeah, pretty
exception of where I'm working on the physical, the actual road miles and stuff like that. But as far as the financials, this is kind of what you were inquiring on, correct?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So does anybody, have you guys had a chance to peruse through this and just kind of see where we're at? It is kind of sort of interesting on, especially 2006, our budget was a couple $1 million less, but then when you look at our county winter maintenance back then was 445,000. So you basically like a quarter of what it was the winter of 19, which salt has definitely taken quite a boost here in the last 15 or 16 years. But it was just interesting when I started putting the numbers together. County construction, our levy, most of that has remained the same. You can see a couple of years where when the DOT was rolling and the programs were there, construction was quite a bit higher than it was. And then you can kind of see when everybody started tightening their belts, and even the amount of work that we did for the towns and villages, you can kind of see when times got lean, they got lean across the board. So any other comments on that?
Yeah, this is Chuck. I think this is a very valuable tool for us to use. So thanks for putting it all together. Good job.
Thank you. And then I'll just be able to keep updating and building on this. And then if I get a chance here, I'll see if I can just shop back to maybe like right around 2000. So we can kind of start with a 20-year history. And then we'll just keep this spreadsheet, keep building upon it. And then we'll have a pretty good detail. Then if we need some averages, it's easy to go back and just crunch them through the Excel. So thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I also want to thank you for this. It's really great.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'd give you a thumbs up, John, but you can't see me.
That's fine, Brian. I'll take an imaginary thumbs up for today.
Mr. Chair, if I could comment too.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate it, John, too. This was really good in concert with looking at the monthly financials that we'll be providing on an ongoing basis now to the Highway Commission. One thing that really jumped out to me on top of the expenditures and where we're spending our money is the fluctuation in state aids. That really jumped out over the last several years. So when we have the conversation on the health of the fund and the planned use of funding, and when we budget for things, when we have significant swings, in some cases that we don't know about until contracts are already let or equipment's purchased, that really puts us in kind of a challenge to manage the budgets going forward. So I did want to point that out, that some of these changes in funding come to us after the budget's set, sometimes after projects have been let, and so it puts us in a bit of a challenging point. So we'll be working together with Commissioner Swirsky and others to continue to try to stay on top of that as much as we can and account for those fluctuations.
What I found was quite interesting is in our LRIP money from 16 to 17, there was a couple big projects in 17, so we jumped up, almost 700,000 was thrown into our coffers for 17. And then when you drop to 18 and 19, it went from 817,000 to 5,600 and 40 or 5,400 and some change respectively. So that was over an $800,000 drop that was basically pulled out of construction. Affects our GTA and everything, but you don't realize what's going on when the funding isn't there. It goes away. And then when you actually look at, okay, why didn't we get a lot more miles of road done? It was because $800,000 basically disappeared in a matter of a year because the state funded projects weren't there. So it was quite interesting. Now when you can peruse through here and go back 15 or 16 years and kind of see what the trends have been, and it is pretty cyclical, you know, it goes up and down. And like I said, you can tell by looking at the spreadsheets, all the different columns. When it's lean for everybody, because it gets lean for the state, it gets lean for our county maintenance and our county construction, and then you can typically see that it's lean for the cities and villages also. So it is something that we probably should have done a long time ago. Thank you, Chair McCullough, for you know, putting the bug in my ear to put this together. And I think it's something we can build on. We'll get the actual physical aspects jotted down for these years too, and then we'll build from there.
And Mr. Chair, if I may add too, going forward, we'll add another line on revenue, which is the vehicle registration fee.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that we'll be able to track. I too like this because it lays it out for the layman, how this is done. I might suggest it just in terms of presentation, John, that we just leave a gap between the revenue sources and the
Yes.
expenditure sources.
Yes. When I get it
it's
all
more obvious.
Yep. When I get it all doctored up with all the information on here, I'll probably change the format a little bit here.
And we can also distribute this well, I guess we did distribute it electronically, but we as a PDF, so it's not something that's monkeyed with. And I'll repeat what Keith Stry said. We're trying to make an effort to make sure that all the standing committees, including Highway, will get monthly fiscal statements as well, so that you as supervisors can track the performance in terms of the budget for each year, know where things are in the case of the winter of 19 blowing up the budget, or where revenues are down or up, et cetera, so that you can help advise and direct in terms of adjusting to those things that we can't predict.
And I will be incorporating my final version into my November financial report to the county board. And then we will make sure that all the county board members have a hard copy or a PDF copy in hand so they can kind of follow along. And there again, too, it's a tool in their toolbox when their constituents and calls and says, hey, why isn't the road plowed in front of my house? Or why isn't the road fixed in front of my house? And then you can say, well, here's the money we're spending. Here's what we're accomplishing. So I think it's going to be a valuable tool for everybody, a really good informational resource.
Anyone else have anything to add on that? All righty. Excellent. Thanks again. And I appreciate that you were already anticipated my suggestion to add that into the report. So moving on.
Paul, can we just touch on the 2021 budget, or do you want to wait until our action item for discussion on that?
Does anyone?
I recommend we wait.
Okay, then Chair McCullough, that concludes my staff report.
All right, Bob, do you want to bring us up to speed here on the broadband forward stuff?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. A couple of things that I want to speak to the committee about regarding broadband. The first one is to let you know that we are broadband forward certified, and we got that certification from the PSC on July 13 of this year. With that certification, before we submitted to that, I was before your committee several times speaking about the impacts of broadband forward as it applies to permits, and specifically the highway department, because you guys issue a fair amount of permits to work in your right of way. Typically, that's where the broadband infrastructure is going to be going. And the broadband forward has some language that says that, you know, that the fees need to be reasonable, and they've deemed reasonable as $100 per application or per permit. you guys issue sometimes multiple permits on a single project. So it isn't that a single project is $100. Let's be clear on that. It's per permit for the project. And so I just wanted to let you know that that is up and going, and so that going forward, the expectation is that the county would be charging $100 for broadband network projects that come through the highway department. So questions or comments just about that piece of broadband forward?
Anyone?
All right. The next item I'd like to talk, and it's broadband related, is before we got the certification, but while it was down at the PSC being reviewed, Bloomer Telephone had a project, and they submitted the application to the county for their project. They submitted that around May 10. It got processed somewhere around June 1. And the county issued an invoice, or at least that the fee for that project would be $3,025. And I believe that was 18 or 19 separate permits that were inside of that project. I believe it was 18. Shortly after that, and certainly after we had received notification of that our broadband forward certification had been approved, Bloomer Telephone reached out to the Economic Development Corporation and was questioning why the county is charging, so much when we're broadband forward certified. And I think that through discussions with Chairman Bartlett and just from the questions from Bloomer Telecom, is that I believe they were under the impression that we were broadband forward certified before we actually got the certification. So that's why they were questioning the fee. In speaking with Chairman Bartlett, he asked me to go back and look at some of the actions that took place leading up to us applying for and being certified. And one of the big actions that happened, and this is why I was before the committee so much, is we were rewriting the telecommunications ordinance, Chapter 13, and specifically chapter in that there's 13.3.5. There's a section that we wrote specific for broadband forward, broadband network project. We put language in our ordinance that would allow us to apply to become broadband forward certified. That ordinance was sent over to the PSC, the Public Service Commission, for review before we were able to apply for the certification, to make sure that our ordinance was in line with state statutes and with the PSC's requirements for issuing or approving a broadband forward request. So in talking with Chairman Bartlett, there's the feeling that Bloomer Telephone, they thought maybe we were broadband forward. It's the intent of the county to be broadband friendly, and so I think that the chairman was asking about the fee, and what I want to do is have a discussion with the committee to see if the committee would be interested in or amenable to reducing the fee that Bloomer Telephone submitted it was a $3,025 fee, and if you went with what was broadband forward certified, it would be $1,800 fee, so that would be a difference of $1,225. And so I guess before I turn it over to the committee for discussion, I'd just like to ask Chairman Bartlett if that's pretty much the synopsis of where we're at with this report going to the highway.
Yes, that's exactly what I was getting at, that the county board did move to become broadband forward at a certain date. And the applications, where I understand, came in after that date. And I know it took a while for us to get it sent in. And it also took a while to get certified. And the question is, I guess, should we honor what the county board did, or should we wait and honor it after the state certifies us? So I thought it would be good to bring it to this committee and talk about it, seeing this is the committee that has charged the permit fees.
I would certainly be open to that. I think purely as a point of order, if we were going to do it, we would have to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, because that would be potentially an action item. I'm certainly willing to talk about it in the sense of the thing. I'm just looking at our agenda, and I don't want to stray too far into things that are not on it. So is that something that people would be interested in taking a look at and potentially moving on at the next meeting?
Yeah, this is Chuck. I definitely would. I believe it was our intent to go broadband certified, so we should go as to when the action was taken in the county instead of the state certification. But yeah, I agree. It should be on next month's agenda.
I guess
Chairman McCullough, if I could.
Sure.
Thank you very much for that. And so just so that you kind of understand when Bloomer Telephone was questioning that, they reached out to Representative Sommerfeld, and I responded to Representative Sommerfeld with at least the position that I was aware of at the time, that well, we didn't become certified until June, and the request came in early, so that's why that we were saying that the $3,000 fee was appropriate. I have since been asked to schedule a follow-up conversation with Mr. Sommerfeld, and that's going to be later this week. They haven't confirmed the telephone date, so what I will be reporting is that exactly what we've done is that we brought it to this committee for consideration. It's going to be brought back at a future meeting, their next meeting, for an action item.
That sounds great. Anyone have anything to add to that?
I guess I would just question probably Mr. Miller, if this does have to come back to the committee as an action, seeing it is more administration in the highway department. We don't. So I guess I would just question if it has to come back to the committee.
I would agree that it doesn't have to come back to the committee. It is administrative. On the other hand, if it's our first application of this rule, it might be good to have committee endorsement on staff action going forward. So go ahead.
So if it's not an action item, then sent to the committee at this meeting would be adequate, do you think?
If there's a motion endorsing the staff's discretion per your direction, sure.
I would certainly entertain such a motion.
This is Chuck. I'll make a motion that we move forward with the $1,225 difference in the bill.
I'll second it.
Second by Brian. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So Chairman McCall, if I could follow up then? Absolutely. So does that mean that this is not coming back next month, or that when I report to Representative Sommerfeld that it has been acted on? Is that what my report is?
Yes, indeed.
Great. Thank you very much.
And if I may,
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Please do.
for Bob Colson, you and I should put our heads together before you reach out to the representative's office one last time.
Great. I'll set up a meeting with you, Paul. That's it for me on broadband, folks. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Bob. And just a purely administrative note as I'm looking here at my Zoom screen, I have Bob Colson at 2 in 2 blocks, and I thought one of those was Jerry. Jerry, are you with us?
I believe Bob is always on 2 blocks. He has to connect by phone, but
Okay.
also uses his computer for Zoom. I don't think Jerry is with us.
Okay, then I just want to make sure that we get that on the minutes for next meeting, because I initially had thought that he was. All righty. So that brings us to consideration for actions. I would entertain a motion to, oh, Chuck?
I have a question. What about item C under reports, the ATV update?
Oh,
Oh,
my apologies. John?
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We had the WTA had their meeting here about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and the towns all voted on what they would like to do as a unit. Our whole goal was to unify what the towns and the county do, so we actually have some enforcement if there is some issues. So what I believe they've elected to do was to run 365 days a year and 24/7, and then a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. Is that correct, Dave? Is that what they
Yes,
vote?
that is correct. But
Okay.
since that meeting, I have heard from at least one township, and I heard some rumblings from another one that they weren't happy with that. So every township has to pass that ordinance. So I don't know if it will be completely uniform, but it's going to be awful close.
And that's basically exactly what I heard when Travis Mayer and I from the Sheriff's Department had the discussion. That's what it passed at, but there was some unhappy people at the table. And then our discussion took place on if you don't have a unanimous vote, and then we're right back to kind of where we were, where one town is this and one town is that. Now, if I drive across the town border, it's hard for the Sheriff's Department to do enforcement if there's 15 different sets of rules versus one set of rules. So,
And I totally agree with that. I guess I would just say that there's not going to be much enforcement in the townships that can't agree.
sure.
That's that. If I was the Sheriff's Department, that's what I would do.
So the majority that does side with the county's ordinances, the rules, those are the ones where they'll have enforcement, and then the ones that are kind of doing their own thing, then there just won't be the enforcement in those towns. Is that
If I was the sheriff, that's what I would do, because it's too hard to keep track
of all the different rules?
you know.
Yep.
So,
And if I may volunteer, John, the standard rule would be that the sheriff's office would enforce the agreed to amount, 35 mile an hour. Anything more
Yes.
restrictive needs to be local enforcement, but it's essential that we communicate after this meeting with the sheriff himself.
Yes, and right now, the way that the ordinance is written is basically we could only enforce on the county system, that the Sheriff's Department really can't do anything on the local roads the way that the law is written. So, and then we're still working with the Eau Claire County ATV Club, and I'm working with the Dunn County ATV Club on trying to come up with a plan that they're going to present at our October Highway Committee meeting about crossing the County Road H Bridge at Caryville. So we're all still working together on to see if it's feasible, and then come up with a plan once we get on each side of the bridge of how that would pan out if we would proceed. So that's the update on the WTA and ATV update.
Thanks for catching me on that, Chuck. I had, jumped forward so that we could let Bob Colson get out of here and failed to step backwards. Okay. So I think that's everything for staff reports. Thank you, John. Much appreciated. Now moving on to consideration for action to be taken by the committee and the review of the vouchers. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, this is Chuck. I have a couple questions on the vouchers. The
Sure.
first question is Trepalow County for $11,325. And the second question is there were 3 checks wrote out to Energy Solutions, each check 12,000 plus. If you could give to those, please.
The Trempealeau County one is cold mix. Monarch was not producing cold mix currently, so we either get it typically from Monarch or from Trempealeau County. So that's what the cold mix is. And the Energy Solutions is fuel.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on one of the vouchers also, if I may.
Absolutely.
Sherry Eisen Moore for $2,280.
That is for our county safety day coming up here in October. That's Sherry Moore owns United Safety Solutions out of Rhinelander. She is the gal that comes down and does all the first aid, the CPR, and all of our MSHA updates. So she gets prepaid on a portion of her services. So that's for our upcoming safety day here in October.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
Getting back to that Energy Solutions Partners, I had that marked also. Where are they out of? What's that company or whatever?
I believe it's a consortium of co-ops, and I believe that's the one that's out of Toma.
Okay. Yep. I remember.
So,
Okay.
yep,
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
Anyone else? Okay, and just a quick question for the committee on this one. I was just going to go with put the motion on the floor, then do the discussion and do the questions then. And if you would all prefer to do the review questions before the motion goes to the floor, that's fine by me. I just think that parliamentary procedure suggests we should be doing it the other way around.
You're correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so in the future, that was the way why I was doing it that way.
Keep us in line. Keep us in line, Kelly.
You are correct, although Nick has said that at the committee level, we could do it either way.
Okay, yeah, it works fine for me either way. I just wanted to let people know that I wasn't just trying to run roughshod. So if we are done with the reviewing bit, I would entertain a motion to accept the vouchers.
I move we approve the vouchers.
I'll second that motion.
Brian and Chuck, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, hello, I have a cat now. Motion passes. Next up, budget. I will hand that over to John and Keith and Paul and however you want to leap upon that grenade.
Keith, do you want to tackle the first part?
No, go ahead, John.
Okay.
Hit the highlights like you typically do, and I'm here if there's any questions to support.
Include the changes that Paul and I and you discussed yesterday too?
Correct.
Okay. Everybody had a chance to review the preliminary budget that was sent out here and presented to county board. Not a lot of changes. We're pretty much right around that $12 million that we have been here historically for the last couple of years. Paul, I, and Keith did have a budget meeting yesterday afternoon, and with the audit that was completed here in July and our fund balance use over the last 2 years, and then I sent out the letter yesterday evening, kind of with the explanation on where our fund balance draws have gone. Paul and I and Keith agreed to try to eliminate the fund balance consumption for 2021. On the proposed 2021 budget, it was $1,002,000. So in order to replenish our fund balance, if we reduce that fund balance applied by just over $1 million, we'll call it $1 million plus or minus. Dustin and I had a discussion yesterday afternoon, then we would probably delay our County Trunk Z project. That was slated to come in right around $1 million. Right now, preliminary, that's what we're anticipating on doing, is delaying the County Z project for 1 year. And late this fall, when we close up our construction season here of 2020, then we will reanalyze to see if we drop some maintenance, shuffle some pipe work or overlays around, and then maybe go down and at least replace the pipes on Z. But right now, we are anticipating postponing Z 1 more year. So otherwise, everything else, with the exception of a little bit of adjustment to the PEP, basically the wages and benefits, everything is spot on. And I think what we will do also to help replenish our fund balances is we'll dial some of the equipment purchases back. That'll give us a little bit more breathing room. And then in the meantime, I will work with John McLaughlin. We are looking at ways to kind of shore up and pinpoint the 2020 to the current budget, just to see if we can create a little bit of a cushion for 2020 to help out 19 and to take us into 2021. So Keith, I'll turn it over to you if you have any comments.
The only other additional information I would have is that I do want to point out that if you look at the tax levy request, it is flat in comparison to last year. I know that was a conversation point in recent years, as well as the fact that the line below that, motor vehicle taxes, does reflect a full year's amount. If you recall last year when all of this was implemented, County Board passed that. The actual implementation per the state's timeline didn't allow for a full year of funding. So this year does include the additional amount of approximately 121,000 in comparison budget year over budget year. So just wanted to point those additional pieces out.
And just in terms of what's in front of the committee today, because of the adjustment that John Swirsky just covered for you, after questions and any other input or suggested changes, a motion to recommend the budget as adjusted today would be appropriate.
So that figure for fund balance applied is at 2,106 then, correct?
Well, I think we would just eliminate the whole fund balance draw totally. We'd zero out that
That'd
column.
be zero.
Wouldn't you agree, Keith?
That's correct. We'd have to adjust the revenues and the expenditures for that project. So we'd have to adjust both sides of it to balance it out.
Right. Okay.
And then just purely as a technical question, I'm sure you're completely on top of this. With the vehicle registration fee, I know there are some things that we aren't allowed to lower in terms of budgeting for highway, and I presume this doesn't affect that at all.
No, as long as our levy does not decrease, that we're okay on that. So our levy remained flat. So statutorily, I think we're spot on.
Yeah, that was my recollection. I just wanted to verify. Thank you.
Yep.
And that's why I wanted to point that out in my general conversation, is that we've got that on our radar to make sure that we don't drop that.
Great. Thank you, Keith. Does anyone have anything further to add on the budget?
I do have one point I do want to call out. It's in the highway capital expenditures. There is scheduled requested debt of $230,000 for the highway shop roof replacement. So that's something that's kind of a one-off. If you recall, we put together a capital improvement plan, a preliminary, just with all the raw requests, and the departments were to be using that information in submitting their budgets. So that is part of the CIP, and it's funded by debt.
Anything else? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the budget as amended and forward it to executive committee.
This is Chuck. I'll make a motion that we move it on to executive as amended.
Second it.
Chuck and Randy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. And that takes us to the legislative agenda. John, do you want to?
Yes, I'll take that one. Again, I would recommend that we forward our support for the increase of a fuel tax increase. I think that logically that makes the most sense. Again, our gas tax compared to the surrounding states is a fraction of what most of them are. And to me, it's more user based. And if you're out there driving, you're burning fuel and you're contributing to road repair. It's in my opinion, it's the best way to evenly distribute. The people that are wrecking the roads are the ones that are buying the fuel and driving, so they would be paying for it. And that's how we grab the out-of-staters too. If people from Illinois are going up to Minocqua, they're driving on our roads, they're helping to fix our roads. So I am definitely in support of, again, putting it in the legislator's ear that let's put the fuel tax support forward and raise that and let everybody who's using the roads pay for them.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Please do.
on that point, does the committee want to give any consideration just to adding to the verbiage of that legislative item to bring it in line with adjoining states? That might add some additional clarification on the rationale that we present to our legislators.
I would certainly be in favor of that. That seems an excellent argument to be making.
And that's one point that WCHA, when we go to these road schools, they always bring in Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, the surrounding state, and that's their whole, when they show it on the screen on what everybody else is charging and the revenues that they're generating, it's like, why are we sitting on our thumbs? Because even if we met them halfway, it would be more revenue for our roads. So I support Paul's suggestion there, and I think that's a great idea.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that? All right. Oh, Dave?
Well, I was just thinking that it'd be nice if we could get them to come up with a sustainable way of funding our roads instead of the piecemeal thing that they've been doing, add a little here, add a little there, and never come up with a, they should be able to come up with a sustainable way, gas tax with linked to CPI or something like that. Some other things. I don't know if we want to add that or not, but I know WCA has worked on that in the past. Just throwing that out there.
Seems completely reasonable to me. do we want to then make a motion to forward this to exec with the change to the language in gas tax and the note that we would very much appreciate it if the state would come up with a sustainable way to fund the roads going forward? Does that sense of the committee?
Sounds good.
Yeah, this
All
is,
right, good.
I agree. With what you just said, Kelly.
Great. If no one has anything else to, oh, Dave, did you?
No, I was gonna move to that effect if nobody else was going to.
Excellent. Chair Bartlett moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Brian seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And so
We
what
will
I'll
go ahead
ask
and do
is
that.
John Swirsky to craft the language and forward it to me, and I will include it in the list that'll go to executive in September.
Great, thank you, Paul. Looking at my agenda here, we have no consideration of resolutions and ordinances. Does anyone else have anything they need to bring to the attention of the committee at this time? Hearing none, I will go ahead and call us adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that when I first got on,
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
Kelly.
Kelly.
oh, happy birthday, Kelly.
That would be Laura's edition. Okay, Dave, go ahead.
When I first got on, I had my speakers turned down